The grand, ivy-covered buildings of St. Augustine University stood tall against the crisp autumn sky, their ancient bricks whispering stories of brilliance and tradition. Nestled in the heart of an elite academic community, the university was known for producing Nobel laureates, groundbreaking scientists, and influential leaders. It was a place where dreams were forged through discipline, intellect, and relentless ambition. But it was also a world steeped in privilege, where legacy students walked the same halls as scholarship recipients, yet rarely shared the same experiences. Maya Johnson stepped onto campus on a cool September morning, her suitcase in one hand and a folder filled with neatly printed schedules in the other. She had earned her spot at St. Augustine, not through family connections or wealth, but through sheer determination. Growing up in a modest neighborhood, Maya had always been different. While other kids played outside, she spent hours poring over math problems her father would write out for her on scraps of paper. Her dad, though not formally educated, had a knack for numbers and passed that love down to his daughter. He often told her, "Numbers don't lie, Maya. They're fair. And if you understand them, they'll take you places." But St. Augustine wasn't just any school. It was a fortress of academia, guarded by professors who prided themselves on maintaining high standards. As Maya walked across the quad, she couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and unease. She noticed subtle glances from some of the faculty members during orientation, their expressions unreadable. To them, she was an outsider, a name on a diversity report, someone whose presence might dilute the university's reputation for excellence. Dr. Richard Hawthorne, the head of the mathematics department, was particularly skeptical. A towering figure with sharp features and an even sharper tongue, he believed that true genius could only come from years of rigorous training in prestigious institutions. When he saw Maya's name on his advanced calculus roster, his lips curled into a faint smirk. Advanced calculus was his domain, a course designed to weed out all but the most exceptional minds. He assumed Maya wouldn't last more than a few weeks. What Dr. Hawthorne didn't know, and what no one else at St. Augustine realized, was that Maya had spent her teenage years devouring textbooks far beyond her grade level. She had studied trigonometry before she turned 12 and tackled integral calculus by 15. Her teachers back home called her a prodigy, but Maya never thought of herself that way. To her, solving equations was like piecing together a puzzle, each answer unlocking a new mystery. As classes began, Maya kept her head down, focusing on absorbing every bit of knowledge she could. She sat quietly in the back row of Dr. Hawthorne's lecture hall, taking meticulous notes while her classmates scrambled to keep up. But her quiet demeanor only fueled the professor's suspicions. He began watching her closely, searching for signs of struggle, or worse, cheating. Little did he know, Maya wasn't there to prove anything to him. She was there because she loved math. And nothing, not skepticism, not prejudice, could dim her passion. Unbeknownst to Maya, her journey was about to take a dramatic turn. The very people who doubted her would soon learn just how wrong they were. But for now, she remained focused, letting her work speak for itself. After all, numbers didn't lie, and neither did Maya. The final semester at St. Augustine University unfolded like a turning page in Maya's story, marking both an ending and a beginning. With the plagiarism scandal behind her and the university implementing sweeping reforms, Maya found herself standing on the cusp of something greater than she had ever imagined. Her groundbreaking research paper, now published in a respected journal, had earned widespread acclaim, solidifying her reputation as one of the brightest young minds in mathematics. But for Maya, the real victory wasn't the accolades. It was knowing that her journey had sparked meaningful change. The university administration, eager to repair its tarnished image, announced a series of initiatives aimed at fostering inclusivity and equity across campus. New scholarships were created specifically for underrepresented students, ensuring that financial barriers wouldn't stand in the way of talent. Workshops on unconscious bias became mandatory for faculty members, while mentorship programs paired incoming students with professors committed to nurturing their potential. Posters celebrating diversity adorned hallways once dominated by portraits of long-dead white men, signaling a shift toward a more inclusive future. Dr. Emily Carter played a pivotal role in shaping these changes, using her position to advocate for systemic reform. She often credited Maya as the catalyst for the transformation, saying in interviews, "It takes courage to challenge the status quo, but it takes brilliance to redefine it." Maya didn't just open doors, she built new ones. Their partnership remained strong, even as Maya prepared to graduate. Together, they co-authored another paper, this time exploring applications of optimization algorithms in renewable energy systems. It was a project close to Maya's heart, inspired by memories of her father, who had always dreamed of leaving the world better than he found it. As graduation day approached, Maya reflected on how far she'd come. There were moments when the weight of expectations felt unbearable, when the whispers of doubt threatened to drown out her confidence. Yet through it all, she had stayed true to herself, letting her work speak louder than any insult or accusation. Jamal, her steadfast friend, reminded her of this during their last study session together. "You didn't just survive here. You thrived," he said with a grin. "And you made sure nobody could ignore it." On the morning of commencement, Maya stood before a sea of caps and gowns, listening as the dean called her name. As she walked across the stage to receive her diploma, the auditorium erupted in applause, not just from her classmates, but from faculty members who had once doubted her. Dr. Hawthorne and Professor Monroe were notably absent, having been placed on administrative leave pending further disciplinary action. Their absence spoke volumes, a silent acknowledgement of the walls they had tried, and failed, to build around her. After the ceremony, Maya posed for photos with Dr. Carter, who handed her a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. "To Maya, the girl who proved numbers can change the world. Keep solving the impossible." Tears welled up in her eyes as she hugged her mentor tightly, grateful for the guidance and support that had carried her through the toughest days. That evening, surrounded by friends and family, Maya allowed herself to dream about what lay ahead. Offers poured in from top-tier universities and research institutions, each eager to welcome her into their doctoral programs. She knew the road forward wouldn't be easy. There would still be obstacles, skeptics, and moments of self-doubt, but she also knew she wasn't alone anymore. A community of allies stood beside her, ready to lift her up when the climb grew steep. As fireworks lit up the night sky over Street Augustine, Maya looked up, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known before. She thought of her father, whose love for numbers had ignited her own passion, and smiled. He had taught her that equations weren't just lines on a page. They were pathways to understanding the universe. And now, thanks to his lessons and her resilience, Maya was ready to carve her own path, one brilliant solution at a time. As the weeks went by, Maya's presence in Dr. Hawthorne's advanced calculus class became harder to ignore. While most students struggled to grasp the complex theories and formulas, Maya seemed to glide through them with ease. Her assignments were flawless, her quiz scores unmatched, and her insights during discussions often left her classmates nodding in admiration. But instead of earning respect from her professors, her success only deepened their skepticism. To Dr. Hawthorne and his colleague, Professor Evelyn Monroe, Maya's achievements felt like an anomaly, something that needed explanation, even if it meant questioning her integrity. Dr. Hawthorne couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. How could a student from such a humble background excel so effortlessly in a course designed to challenge the brightest minds? He began paying closer attention to her work, scrutinizing every step of her solutions for errors or inconsistencies. Yet, time and again, he found nothing but perfection. It frustrated him, not because he wanted her to fail, but because he genuinely couldn't understand how she was succeeding. His pride wouldn't allow him to consider the simplest truth, that Maya was simply brilliant. Professor Monroe shared his concerns. A stern woman with a reputation for being unapproachable, she had always believed that talent was cultivated through privilege. In her mind, students who came from underfunded schools couldn't possibly compete with those who had access to private tutors and elite preparatory programs. She dismissed Maya's accomplishments as luck, assuming she must have had help somewhere along the way. Together, Dr. Hawthorne and Professor Monroe decided it was time to put Maya to the test, not just to gauge her abilities, but to expose what they were convinced was a facade. One chilly Tuesday morning, Dr. Hawthorne walked into the lecture hall carrying a stack of papers. The air buzzed with anticipation as he announced a surprise quiz. "Today," he said, his voice dripping with authority, "we're tackling a problem that has puzzled mathematicians for decades. I doubt any of you will solve it, but let's see who comes closest." He scribbled an equation on the board, a labyrinth of variables, integrals, and symbols that looked more like hieroglyphics than math. The room fell silent as students stared at the board, their faces pale with confusion. But Maya didn't flinch. She tilted her head slightly, studying the problem with calm curiosity. Unlike her peers, who immediately began whispering about its impossibility, she saw patterns where others saw chaos. Slowly, she picked up her pencil and started jotting down notes. Step by step, she unraveled the tangled web of numbers, her movements deliberate and confident. Around her, the hum of frustration grew louder as students gave up one by one. Some glanced at Maya, wondering why she hadn't thrown in the towel like everyone else. When the clock ran out, Dr. Hawthorne called for pens down. Most students handed in blank sheets or half-formed attempts, but Maya walked to the front of the room and placed her paper on his desk without hesitation. Then, turning to the chalkboard, she asked permission to explain her solution. Intrigued, and secretly hoping to catch her in a mistake, Dr. Hawthorne nodded. What followed was nothing short of extraordinary. With clarity and precision, Maya dissected the problem piece by piece, transforming the incomprehensible into the obvious. Every step made sense. Every calculation checked out. By the time she finished, the entire class erupted into applause. Even Dr. Hawthorne sat frozen, his jaw slightly agape. For the first time in years, he found himself genuinely impressed, but also unsettled. If Maya could solve this, what else was she capable of? Still, pride outweighed reason. Instead of celebrating her achievement, Dr. Hawthorne muttered something about beginner's luck before dismissing the class. But Maya didn't need his validation. As she packed up her things and headed out, she smiled to herself, knowing she had proven something far greater than anyone realized. Numbers didn't lie, and neither did she. Years passed, and Maya's name became synonymous with brilliance and perseverance. She chose to attend Princeton University for her doctoral studies, where she continued to push the boundaries of mathematics, focusing on real-world applications that could improve lives. Her work in optimization algorithms led to breakthroughs in disaster relief logistics, helping governments respond faster and more efficiently to crises. By the time she completed her PhD, Maya had not only earned a reputation as a trailblazer in her field, but also become a role model for countless young students who saw themselves in her story. Back at St. Augustine University, the reforms Maya had inspired continued to reshape the institution. The mathematics department, once a fortress of exclusivity, transformed into a hub of innovation and inclusivity. Dr. Emily Carter was promoted to head of the department, bringing fresh perspectives and policies that prioritized diversity and mentorship. A scholarship fund bearing Maya's name was established to support underrepresented students pursuing careers in STEM. Every year, recipients of the scholarship gathered for a symposium, sharing their research and celebrating progress, a tradition Maya herself attended whenever she could. Meanwhile, Dr. Richard Hawthorne and Professor Evelyn Monroe faded into obscurity. Their suspensions turned into early retirements after an internal review confirmed patterns of discriminatory behavior. Though some alumni defended them, arguing that they were simply products of their time, most agreed that their actions had no place in modern academia. Their departure marked the end of an era, paving the way for younger, more progressive voices to lead. Maya often thought about those difficult days at Street Augustine, not with anger, but with gratitude. They had taught her resilience, forcing her to dig deep and discover strengths she didn't know she possessed. More importantly, they reminded her why she loved math. It was fair, logical, and universal. Numbers didn't care about your background or what others thought of you. They only cared about truth. And through every challenge, Maya had clung to that truth, letting it guide her forward. Her journey wasn't without its challenges even after leaving Street Augustine. As a black woman in a predominantly white, male-dominated field, she still faced skepticism and bias. But Maya approached these moments with the same calm determination that had carried her through her undergraduate years. She learned to use her voice, not just to defend herself, but to amplify others. At conferences and workshops, she encouraged young mathematicians to embrace their unique perspectives, reminding them that innovation thrived when diverse voices came together. One evening, while giving a keynote speech at a national mathematics conference, Maya shared a story she rarely spoke about publicly. "When I was a child," she began, "my father used to say that numbers are like stars. They're always there, waiting to be discovered. He believed that anyone, no matter where they came from, could reach for them if they dared to try." Her voice softened as she added, "I wish you were here today to see how far we've come. But I know he'd tell me the same thing he always did: keep solving the impossible." The audience erupted in applause, many moved to tears by her words. Afterward, a line of students formed to speak with her, each one eager to share their dreams and struggles. Maya listened patiently, offering advice and encouragement, just as Dr. Carter had done for her all those years ago. In that moment, she realized her legacy wasn't just in the equations she solved, it was in the lives she touched along the way. Today, Maya is a professor, author, and advocate, using her platform to champion equity in education. Her memoir, Numbers Don't Lie, has inspired readers around the world, proving that talent knows no boundaries. Though she has achieved more than she ever dreamed possible, Maya remains grounded, driven by a simple belief that everyone deserves a chance to shine. And as she looks out at the next generation of thinkers and problem solvers, she knows her father would be proud. Because numbers don't lie. And neither does she. The fallout from the plagiarism accusation sent shockwaves through Street Augustine University, forcing long-buried issues to the surface. What had started as a personal vendetta against Maya quickly spiraled into a broader reckoning, exposing cracks within the institution's hollowed walls. Anonymous testimonials began flooding social media and internal forums, with students sharing stories of bias, exclusion, and outright hostility they had faced in classrooms and labs. Some recounted professors dismissing their questions during office hours, while others described being told they didn't belong in advanced courses because of their background. The voices grew louder, united by one common thread: the desire for change. Dr. Hawthorne and Professor Monroe found themselves at the center of the storm. Their names became synonymous with outdated attitudes and systemic inequities, drawing scrutiny not only from students but also from colleagues who had silently disagreed with their methods for years. During faculty meetings, tensions simmered as professors debated whether the accusations were isolated incidents or indicative of deeper problems within the department. Even those who hadn't taken sides initially began questioning the culture they had helped perpetuate, a culture that valued tradition over inclusivity. For Maya, the attention was overwhelming. She had never sought to be the face of a movement, yet here she was, standing at the forefront of a battle much larger than herself. Friends and classmates rallied around her, organizing discussions and workshops about diversity in STEM fields. Posters went up across campus, quoting Maya's defiant words during the faculty meeting. "Numbers don't lie, and neither do I." Her courage inspired others to speak out, creating a groundswell of support that extended far beyond the university's gates. But the fight wasn't without its challenges. Dr. Hawthorne and Professor Monroe refused to back down, doubling down on their accusations in private conversations and attempting to discredit Maya behind closed doors. They argued that holding them accountable would undermine academic rigor, framing the backlash as an attack on excellence rather than an effort to address inequality. Their resistance only fueled the growing demand for reform, pushing the administration to take action. Finally, under mounting pressure from students, faculty, and alumni, the university launched a formal investigation into the mathematics department. A panel of external experts was brought in to review policies, interview stakeholders, and assess the treatment of marginalized students. For weeks, the campus buzzed with speculation as details emerged about discriminatory practices and favoritism that had gone unchecked for decades. Meanwhile, Maya continued to focus on her research, using it as a refuge from the chaos swirling around her. With Dr. Carter's guidance, she submitted their groundbreaking paper to a prestigious national conference, where it was accepted for presentation. When the day arrived, Maya stood nervously at the podium, scanning the crowded room filled with mathematicians, researchers, and industry leaders. As she began speaking, her nerves melted away, replaced by the same quiet confidence that had carried her through every challenge so far. She explained her methodology, shared her findings, and answered questions with clarity and poise, earning a standing ovation when she finished. Back at Street Augustine, news of Maya's success further galvanized the push for change. Students organized rallies, demanding accountability and transparency from the administration. Faculty members drafted proposals for new initiatives aimed at fostering inclusivity, including mentorship programs and bias training. Slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. By the time the investigation concluded, the verdict was clear. Systemic issues existed within the mathematics department, perpetuated by individuals unwilling to adapt to a changing world. Dr. Hawthorne and Professor Monroe were temporarily suspended pending further review, sending a message that prejudice would no longer be tolerated. Though justice felt bittersweet, Maya knew this was just the beginning. Change wouldn't happen overnight, but she had planted the seeds, and she intended to see them grow. The aftermath of Maya's stunning performance in Dr. Hawthorne's class rippled through the university like a shockwave. Word spread quickly among students who couldn't stop talking about how she had solved the unsolvable problem with such grace and precision. Some called it genius. Others whispered that she might be the smartest person on campus. For many of her classmates, Maya became an instant legend, a symbol of what could be achieved when talent met determination. But while students admired her, the reaction from certain faculty members was far less celebratory. Dr. Hawthorne, in particular, couldn't shake off the unease that settled over him after witnessing Maya's brilliance firsthand. He had spent years cultivating a reputation as one of the toughest professors at Street Augustine, priding himself on challenging even the brightest minds. Yet here was a student, not just solving his most difficult problems, but doing so with methods he hadn't seen before. Her approach wasn't textbook standard. It was innovative, almost artistic in its elegance, and that unnerved him. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. Students like Maya weren't supposed to exist in his world. Professor Evelyn Monroe shared his discomfort. When she heard about the incident, she cornered Dr. Hawthorne in the faculty lounge, her arms crossed tightly across her chest. "There's no way she did that on her own," she said, her tone sharp. She must have had help, someone feeding her answers or guiding her through it. Dr. Hawthorne nodded slowly, though deep down, he knew better. He had watched Maya work, seen the focus in her eyes, and the certainty in her movements. There was no fumbling, no hesitation. Whatever she had done alone. Despite their doubts, or perhaps because of them, the two professors grew increasingly obsessed with finding flaws in Maya's work. They began assigning her extra credit problems, each more convoluted than the last, hoping to trip her up. But every time, Maya delivered solutions that were not only correct but elegant. She didn't just answer questions, she redefined them, offering insights that left both professors scrambling to keep up. Still, they refused to acknowledge her skill outright, dismissing her success as luck or coincidence. What they didn't know was that Maya's abilities weren't born overnight. From a young age, she had been fascinated by numbers, thanks in large part to her father, a self-taught engineer with a passion for problem-solving. He had introduced Maya to mathematics as a child, turning everyday moments into lessons. Whether they were counting tiles on the kitchen floor or calculating the angles of shadows cast by trees, math was always present in their lives. After her father passed away, Maya poured herself into her studies, using equations and formulas as a way to stay connected to him. To her, math wasn't just a subject. It was a language, one that spoke directly to her heart. As the weeks went on, Maya continued to shine, earning top marks in every assignment and project. But the pressure from her professors mounted, their skepticism morphing into something uglier. During one particularly tense lecture, Dr. Hawthorne publicly questioned her methodology, implying that her unconventional techniques lacked rigor. Maya listened quietly, her expression calm, before responding with a detailed explanation that silenced the room. Even her harshest critics couldn't argue with her logic. Still, the constant scrutiny weighed on her. Late at night, when the dorms were quiet and the rest of the campus slept, Maya would sit by her window, staring out at the stars. She thought about her father, about all the sacrifices he had made to give her a chance at a better life. She wondered if he ever faced people who doubted him, who tried to tear him down simply because he didn't fit their idea of what success should look like. If he had, she knew he wouldn't have let it break him. And neither would she. For now, Maya chose to rise above the negativity, letting her work speak for itself. She understood that proving someone wrong wasn't enough. True strength came from staying true to yourself, no matter the obstacles. And as long as she had numbers to guide her, she knew she'd be okay. Because numbers didn't lie. And neither did she. With Dr. Emily Carter's guidance, Maya found herself stepping into a new chapter, one that blended defiance with discovery. The two began working together on a research project that would push the boundaries of optimization algorithms, a field central to everything from artificial intelligence to supply chain management. For Maya, this collaboration was more than just an academic pursuit. It was a chance to channel her frustrations into something meaningful. Every late-night brainstorming session and every breakthrough reinforced her belief that she belonged in this world of numbers and possibilities. Dr. Carter became more than a mentor. She was an ally, someone who saw Maya not as a statistic or a token, but as a brilliant mind capable of reshaping the future. Together, they tackled problems that had stumped even seasoned researchers. Their approach was unconventional, blending theoretical rigor with practical applications in ways that felt almost intuitive to Maya. She thrived in this environment, her creativity unleashed by the freedom to explore without judgment. For the first time since arriving at Street Augustine, she felt truly seen. But just as things seemed to be looking up, trouble loomed once again. When Dr. Hawthorne caught wind of Maya's research, his reaction was swift and venomous. During a faculty meeting, he openly questioned the legitimacy of her contributions, suggesting that no undergraduate, let alone someone like Maya, could produce work of such complexity. "It's impossible," he declared, his tone dripping with disdain. Either she had significant outside help, or parts of this were plagiarized. The accusation hit like a thunderclap. Plagiarism was one of the most serious offenses in academia, a stain that could ruin careers before they even began. Maya felt the ground shift beneath her feet. All her hard work, all her sacrifices, threatened to crumble under the weight of baseless allegations. But instead of retreating, she stood firm. With Dr. Carter's encouragement, she gathered evidence to defend her work. Drafts showing the evolution of her ideas, notes detailing her thought process, and emails documenting her collaboration with Dr. Carter. If Dr. Hawthorne wanted a fight, Maya was ready to give him one. The confrontation came during a tense faculty review session. Dr. Hawthorne and Professor Monroe sat at the head of the table, their expressions smug as they presented their case against Maya. "We're simply ensuring academic integrity," Professor Monroe said coolly, though her words carried a thinly veiled hostility. This level of innovation is unprecedented for an undergraduate. We need to verify its authenticity. When it was Maya's turn to speak, she rose calmly, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. She walked the committee through her research step by step, explaining how each idea had developed and how every solution had been meticulously tested. Her presentation was flawless, leaving no room for doubt. Then, turning to Dr. Hawthorne, she asked pointedly, "If you believe my work is plagiarized, can you provide evidence? Or is your claim based solely on assumptions about what someone like me is capable of?" The room fell silent. Dr. Hawthorne shifted uncomfortably in his seat, unable to respond. Dr. Carter stepped in, her tone measured but firm. "Maya has demonstrated exceptional skill and originality. To accuse her without proof isn't just unfair, it's unprofessional. I stand by her work completely." Other professors began nodding in agreement, their respect for Maya growing as they witnessed her composure and clarity. By the end of the meeting, the accusations had crumbled under the weight of Maya's defense. Though Dr. Hawthorne and Professor Monroe tried to save face, their credibility was damaged. Word of the incident spread quickly, sparking outrage among students and faculty alike. Anonymous testimonials started surfacing online, revealing similar experiences of bias and discrimination within the mathematics department. What had begun as a personal attack on Maya had ignited a larger conversation about inclusivity and fairness at St. Augustine. For Maya, the victory wasn't just about clearing her name. It was about proving that brilliance exists in unexpected places. As she left the meeting, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Numbers didn't lie, and neither did she. And now, more people than ever were starting to believe it. As the semester wore on, Maya's resilience became a quiet rebellion against the growing hostility from certain corners of the faculty. Dr. Hawthorne and Professor Monroe, unable to discredit her through subtle means, escalated their efforts in ways that were harder to ignore. Assignments that should have taken hours suddenly required days of painstaking work, filled with obscure references and overly complex instructions clearly designed to overwhelm. Pop quizzes turned into marathon problem sets, each one more convoluted than the last. Yet, no matter how unreasonable the task, Maya completed it with precision and poise. But the emotional toll was undeniable. Maya wasn't immune to the stress. She could feel the weight of their scrutiny pressing down on her every time she walked into class. The stares, the whispered comments, the thinly veiled accusations during office hours. It all added up. What made it worse was the isolation. While some students admired her, others kept their distance, wary of being associated with someone who seemed to attract so much negative attention. Even friendships felt strained under the unspoken tension. One evening, after another grueling day, Maya found herself sitting in the student lounge with Jamal, her closest friend on campus. Jamal, a physics major with a quick wit and a kind heart, had been watching the situation unfold with growing concern. "You can't keep letting them treat you like this," he said, his voice firm but gentle. "They're not just testing your skills. They're trying to break you." Maya sighed, leaning back in her chair. "I know," she admitted softly. "But what am I supposed to do? If I complain, they'll say I'm making excuses. If I fight back, they'll call me difficult. It's like no matter what I do, they've already decided who I am." Jamal shook his head, his expression serious. "That's exactly why you have to fight back, not for them, but for yourself. Start documenting everything. The unfair assignments, the weird questions in class, anything that feels off. You might need it later." He paused, then added, "And don't go through this alone. Talk to Dr. Carter. She's always talking about supporting underrepresented students. Maybe she can help." Maya hesitated. Reaching out for help wasn't easy for her. She had spent most of her life proving she could handle things on her own, whether it was acing tests without tutoring or navigating challenges without asking for favors. But Jamal was right. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about standing up for everyone who had ever been underestimated because of where they came from or how they looked. The next day, Maya took Jamal's advice and reached out to Dr. Emily Carter, a junior professor known for her advocacy work. Dr. Carter listened intently as Maya recounted the escalating tension in her classes, nodding sympathetically. When Maya finished, Dr. Carter leaned forward, her eyes steady. "What you're describing isn't just tough teaching. It's discriminatory behavior. And you're not the only one dealing with it. I've heard similar stories from other students, but they've been too afraid to speak up. If you're willing to take a stand, we can address this together." Encouraged by Dr. Carter's support, Maya began keeping detailed records of every interaction with Dr. Hawthorne and Professor Monroe. She saved emails, took screenshots of assignment instructions, and jotted down notes after each lecture. Slowly, a pattern emerged, one that painted a clear picture of bias and exclusion. Meanwhile, rumors about Maya's treatment spread among students, sparking debates across campus. Some defended the professors, claiming high standards were necessary for maintaining academic excellence. Others rallied behind Maya, calling out the double standards and systemic issues within the department. For Maya, the backlash was exhausting, but also empowering. For the first time, she realized she wasn't fighting alone. Friends, classmates, and even strangers started reaching out to share their own experiences, offering words of encouragement and solidarity. Together, they formed an informal network, reminding Maya that her brilliance wasn't something to shrink away from. It was something to celebrate. Still, the battle was far from over. Every day brought new challenges, new attempts to undermine her confidence. But Maya refused to let them win. With each equation she solved, each challenge she overcame, she proved not only to herself, but to everyone around her that talent knows no boundaries. Numbers didn't lie, and neither did she.